Hello, welcome to Hidden Existence. Hope everybody is doing all right out there tonight. It is night 10, I think. 9, 10. I've lost count. It's one of the 12 days of Christmas that I've been doing. It's been getting harder and harder and later, but I'm enjoying it. I am enjoying it. And tonight's going to be a good night. Joining me, co-hosting tonight is Kyle. How are you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you very much.
Good.
And our guest tonight, creative OZARK Mountain Sasquatch. It's Shane Carpenter and Randy Harrington joining us. How you doing, guys?
Good. Doing
Hanging
good.
in there.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. We all are, I think, at this point. So Shane, we know you were on not so long ago. We know you're doing a documentary, or you're filming, you're documenting the stuff that's going on down in the 400, and you're kind of wanting to keep, most of it for yourselves, obviously, because you've got, stuff you want to put out, as what you've been collecting and the evidence and stuff like that. But we've been very lucky that you are going to share with us some snippets of some of the things that you've collected, some of the things that will be in the documentary, and so I'm grateful of that. That you're going to do that. I'm excited to go through the stuff with you. But I'll let you lead the way, and do it in the order that you want to. And
Yeah, just to expand on that a little bit, we've got we're filming a docu-series type deal right now, and as of right now, we're going to be filming through late next year, and we have just a small crew is all we allowed to come in, just 3 people, and the 2 director producers and a camera person is it. So we have one director is also running a camera, and the other is running audio, and then we have a lady that just runs the camera full time. So it's all we would allow. Originally, we were only wanting 2 people, and they talked us into the 3rd, which it was a good choice. And yeah, they're basically just hanging out with us and following us, over the next year, and it's going to be put into a docu-series, and they're going to be focusing, mainly on the evidence that we're getting and how we're doing it, what we're doing, but it'll go into our personal lives somewhat at times too. And we're planning some other things that will be a part of it, at least one other property, maybe 2. And then Randy's been wanting to get back down to the Chickasaw Park. So this may be a good time to let Randy announce it. We don't have a date. We know what month we're going to do it in, but I'll let Randy talk about that. It's has more to do with him and his experience there. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, maybe a percentage of the people in the audience would probably know my story from the Chickasaw Park that involved the 2 creatures, and this happened in 2006. It was February of 2006, and subsequently after that, I spent so much time going back to that park and trying all different types of things. Got a lot of evidence over the years. And then it got to the point where they took out all the pine trees because they said it was because of droughts. I mean, that was all the cover. I mean, they took all the pine cover out of that forest all the way up to the lakes. And then they changed the trash cans that the Bigfoots were getting into when I was there into bear-proof trash cans. So those 2 changes, I'm sure that really changed the dynamics of the creatures coming into that park. But I can't imagine them stopping completely. You still got the freshwater springs going through that whole park that, gives you a water source, a nice clean water source. So I can't imagine that they would completely vacate the area, but even though the activity might be diminished. But I've never had the drone that I've got right now. And that's why I want to go back to that park. I have caught something with my handheld thermal there in the creek one night on a cold night in the middle of the water. So there's still stuff going on, but now we've got better equipment. So my plan is, I've had so many people over the years ask, hey, we'd sure like to go out with you. Hey, I'd like to hang out at a campfire with you and things like that. This is going to be the perfect opportunity. We're going to set it up for sometime in March, tentatively. Soon as I get, a date in March figured out. I'm probably going to set it up from say Thursday to Sunday so that most people can show up on a Friday night if they, normal work schedules are Monday through Friday. So got to include the weekend on that if we want people to show up. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be basically a place where I'm going to be sending that drone up 4, 5, 6 times a night. There's trails there all the way back to Arbuckle Lake that you can walk on. We'll take our handheld thermals. We'll do night hikes in that area. We'll go along Rock Creek where there's been sightings. I'll send up my drone on multiple times throughout the night, but it'll just be fun. It'll be fun. If 10 or 12 campsites are taken up by people, by friends and people that want to meet up and just have nice discussions around a nice warm fire. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it sounds like, like you say, like fun. It's going to be an experience, isn't it? And people get to experience what it's like, trying to find these things, or at least being out in the woods at night.
Well, remember when I did the show with you talking about my experiences, and I showed you those dusty, big, huge handprints on the inside of the women's bathroom. I mean, I'll show people where these were found. I've got the picture of that male with the big shoulders, and I often describe the one that I saw having bowling ball looking shoulders, and then I've got that picture of the one set up on the hillside that's got the big shoulders. So it's probably the same male. So I will show everybody where that picture was taken. I will show everybody. We'll go down to the creek. I'll show them where I caught one in the water with my thermal camera. I will show them exactly what happened at my campsite when I saw the two. And so to have people in those exact spots and be able to look at the pictures that I've got, the game camera I caught of the juvenile where I got his head and his armpit, I'll show them where all that happened, how we were able to trick them. And I just think that interactive experience for people who are looking for, something that's kind of out of the ordinary, this will be it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's going to be come one, come all. We just plan to really just to have a good time and be able to get out with people and mingle. And like he was saying, we've had a lot of people that have asked us to get together at some point. So Randy thought this would be a good time to do it. And then we can get out and they can see how we research, and we can I actually look forward to sitting around the campfire and just hearing other people's stories too, being able to converse and all that good stuff. And we will have the camera crew with us too. We'll be filming. So the people that show up for it will. Yeah.
And they're really going to see how high tech we've gotten at this point, because the scenario there at the Chickasaw Park is going to be perfect, because I've got a case for my drone, the 5 extra batteries, and the big controller. So it can all be carried in one case. So I can take that with us. Shane and I have wireless headsets. So if we go out on these trails in the off season, when there's not much people camping at all, if any, and all of a sudden there's this much activity out there, certainly if these things are around, they're going to be enticed to come see what is going on. This is not normal for this many people to be there in the off season. So if they come in to spy on us, I'll be sending the drone up as we're out on these trails. As soon as I find an opening, I'm going to send that drone up, looking on the bluffs above us, seeing if we get any visitors. And then we can send Shane up there with his handheld unit, and we'll be using the wireless headsets for me to direct him where to go by using the drone, because I'm watching with the thermal camera on the drone to where he can go. So they're going to see some really high tech things happening. If we get visitors, we should be able to find them.
Yeah, well, hopefully, like you said, the curiosity will draw them in, because they seem to be curious, don't they? And you're not risking anything doing it out there, unlike if you'd have done it at the 400. You might be pushing boundaries with them and upsetting them, and like you say, not having anything happen again.
Right,
so,
and this would be one of the few places that we can just openly share, because it's a public campground. It just happens to be where I had my encounter that started this whole process. So what a great place to invite all the people that have ever wanted to hang out at a campfire and just give them the opportunity to see what it's all about.
Yeah. Well,
and it will be off season too, so the whole park isn't open. There's only about 40 campsites open, right, Randy?
Out of like 150.
Yeah, so it won't, it'll be limited. Of course, I wouldn't expect even for that many people to show up, but just so people know, it will be limited space, first come, first serve. You got to book your own site and all that good stuff. We're just promising people that when we book the date, we'll be there. So.
Well, what they have what they have at the entrance to the campsite, it's Rock Creek, but what they have at the entrance is one of those quists where you use your credit card. You go in, pick your campsite, and go back out, stick your credit card in, tell them how many nights you're going to stay, and then you pay that way. So you got to have a credit card, but it's very easy, and a lot of times there's not even a camp host there in the off season, so it could just be us enjoying our own company.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you're not charging anything yourselves, which
Right.
is, the best thing about it is you're taking time out to share this with people, and I think it will be really, a good experience. Just you have to let us know nearer the time how are people going to get in touch, how people going to be able to join. So that'd be good.
We'll announce it once we set the date, and we've got to get everything lined up with the film crew also, because they want to be there for it, and that'll make it a lot of fun for people too, knowing that good chance they'll have their face in the documentary somewhere, and so open up and make it fun for everybody else. That's kind of our plan. Of course, we're going to have a good time, but this will be just a moment where we can step aside and go enjoy a moment with other people that wouldn't normally get out with us, ever really. Yeah. And if this is,
and have a real chance at something happening.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a chance for something to happen, it's at this park.
And a great chance to share people's experiences with other people, which is also, you can get a lot more information when you're actually talking in groups with people, with more people, than being on a screen going live.
Well, hey, I would like to tell you on that note, when we spoke at the conference, the Missouri conference, just a couple of months ago, a lady, when we got done, you'd get to the back where all the people are at, and this is almost like a line forms of people that just want to chit chat with you. But this one lady came through the line, and she was like, oh, I wanted to. She said, that park you were talking about? I said, Rock Creek, Chickasaw? She said, yes. She said, I've got an autistic daughter, and we were down there camping. She said, my autistic daughter's, I don't know, 6 or 7. And she said she came into the tent one day and said, Mommy, there's monkeys here.
Wow.
I forgot about that.
So that was not too long ago, same park. And something about autistic children or, special needs children, things like that, these creatures, especially the young ones, are not afraid to show themselves. So maybe that really happened. I hope it did, because it makes me excited about getting back out there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, let's get into this stuff that you've got going on now.
We were just talking about the drone, actually. So, were you able to download those last 2 pictures I sent you?
Yeah.
So that's a drone picture right there from, I believe Randy was at either 500 or 700 feet at that point. Mm-hmm. And you can see there's 2 hot spots, and then there's a single hot spot. The 2 hot spots in the center, that's me and Randy. And that other hot spot is a fire next to the tent.
So the hot spot is the dark. I mean, I know it sounds simple, but what you're looking at.
The hot spot is the white.
Those white, right? Got you.
Those squares are tents and canopies.
Got you. So you're just outside the tents, right? I'm with you now.
Yeah. We're right there next to camp. If you switch to that other picture, that's the same picture. It's just zoomed in.
Yeah.
And so that just, that's a zoom. I just took that picture itself and zoomed, but that just kind of shows you the capabilities of this thermal, and especially when the leaves are off of the trees, everything just opens up for that thing. So it's pretty amazing, how much we can see now, especially that the leaves are gone. So
and again, how high were you there?
It was either 500 foot or 700 foot.
Right, got you.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's good.
So, and of course, that wasn't even the zoom on the camera itself. It has a 4x zoom on it that Randy can use. And that was just me blowing up that particular picture. And the zoom is actually clearer when you use the zoom itself. So tech wise, I feel like Randy got the best thermal drone that we could possibly get. So we're topped out as far as that goes now, So this winter, a lot of what we're doing has to do with using that drone because of the foliage being gone. So
Can I ask you what drone it is?
It's the Autel V2 thermal drone.
Okay.
It's about a $12,000 unit.
Oh, all right, cool. Yeah.
It actually has a picture-in-picture also, so you can have it on 6K, just a regular camera, and then you can picture-in-picture and use the thermal inside that picture at the same time. So the center of the picture, so like you can use it during the day, using the thermal during the day to find heat signatures, and the 6K camera is recording it at the same time also.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a really, really awesome piece of equipment. Really awesome piece. So, and we've been utilizing it here lately. Just started really like getting in situations where Randy's following with the drone or going out ahead of me with the drone, looking for hot spots, things like that.
And Kyle, if you really want to see some of the capabilities, just go to my YouTube, and there's all kinds of videos taken from the drone while they're being used. And there's times I'm following Shane down a creek as he's tracking, and I'm watching him with the drone, and you're going to see the incredible clarity you're going to see with that thermal. But just go to Randy Harrington on YouTube, and you'll have all kinds of videos you can scroll through and examine.
Okay, awesome.
Your links are getting posted anyway, getting posted in the chat as we're going along. I'm pretty sure I've put them in I have your links are in the description anyway for people.
Yeah, I just saw a question on there from That's Fresh. There's no flash on the camera per se. But you know, if we're using it at night, regardless, we wouldn't even want the flash. We would rather stick with the thermal at night because we have to keep an eye on them. And like you turn that thermal off for 1 second and lose them, and you know, the possibilities that they're gone. So it does take pictures though. Pictures and 6K video and thermal also. So yeah, awesome piece of equipment.
I purchased quiet blades, which are considerably more quiet than the regular blades on there. And you can go in before you start flying and you can shut off all the lights. So there's all, I mean, it's such a high tech. I'm still struggling with it. It's so complex. It's like a computer with wings, and there's so many things. I mean, it took me till the last time to even find out that I could hit this button and zoom. I thought I had to fly the drone closer, and I finally I practiced with it and I hit this button, and so it's got 4 times zoom it took me a while to even find that. Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you definitely need to study it, don't you? These things can be quite complicated though, can't they?
Right.
But this is the way forward, isn't it? Really, is unfortunately money is the only thing that's going to get you the tech now to really capture these things in real time, like moving, you know, doing something. Pictures now, they're just so, you know, people just want to rip them apart, don't they? It doesn't matter. People always have an opinion on them. It doesn't prove anything, unfortunately, but it's going to be pretty hard to question video, something moving, doing something, the metadata on things like that in raw format. Even you can just give it out, not give it out. But,
our goal is knowing that out of 15 maybes, it's just going to take one showing locomotion. Any kind of locomotion that you can capture on video where it shows the way a leg moves or an arm or in 4x4 mode. It's really only going to take one, and then all of a sudden it's going to bust wide open, because that's going to reveal so much.
Yeah. And in terms of the noise of the drone, really, where can this thing go from? It can't predict, even if it tries to run away from it. It doesn't know what it's going to do, does it? It doesn't realize.
Well, like this time of year, if Randy was to get on a heat signature and it took off running, he can literally lock it onto it, and the drone will follow it on its own. It will do the work for us. So it's got some amazing capabilities. It'll do some of these things in thermal mode that, you know, these other drones will do with a regular camera. It will do it in thermal mode too. So that's a huge blessing.
Just go, even while we're talking, open up another window and go to my YouTube and just a couple of the videos and look at when I see Shane, I was going along the creek and I saw Shane. Shane was hearing noises. So I was just looking for heat signatures on the other side of the creek. And he was actually looking for tracks. And so when I spot him, I concentrate on him. And just, you are going to be amazed at how clear. I mean, the branches are crisp and the lines are so tight with, I mean, you can, it's like looking in daylight almost.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, just give me a second here. Got so many windows open. We'll have a quick look. We'll have a look at this. This is the one where you're trying to find Shane.
That's me sitting in a chair.
Right, got you.
Crazy.
I mean,
That's amazing.
It is, isn't it? I mean, it's so clear. This really struggle for something to hide.
Now, here in a couple of minutes, you'll see me. I'll find Shane along the creek.
Mm. That details are incredible, isn't it? There.
Yeah, that is really, really crisp. Do you think you know anybody who'd take a kidney for one of these?
And have you sussed out the zoom at this point, or had you not? Were you just going low? Right, okay.
No, I'll zoom in on Shane when I get to Shane. So there's the creek on the back side of our campsite, and I'm still looking for Shane. But you're gonna see his heat signature there on the right when I start going down the creek, and you're gonna see him to the right. He'll be that bright hot heat signature.
And this was there was still foliage on a lot of the trees at this point too.
So there's Shane. See him to the right?
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Remarkable.
I can't wait for you to capture Bigfoot on this. I mean, then it's getting the angle, isn't it? You've really got to seal it all, haven't you?
And that drone, when it's hovering, feels like it's sitting on top of a pole. I mean, it's motionless.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great piece of tech, and like we get in a position to start getting these things on thermal again. You know, hopefully that's going to be one of the things that catches them. We did recently purchase a thermal monocular that was about $5,000, and it's a 4x40, so it has amazing zoom capabilities. And we use Randy's. We're actually getting ready to order him one also, the same exact monocular, but it's a 1x16, so it has a really wide view. It has a wide field of view, whereas the one that we got from me is a 4x40, so it has a smaller view, but it can zoom in 40 times and keeps really, really good clarity also, actually. So between the two, once we get this third one and Randy gets it set up like his is now, we're going to be like, that's pretty much it for us as far as equipment goes, other than smaller, less expensive stuff,
and they've already worked well. And they've already worked well because we've been out with we were out with Dan Nedrolo, and I would spot something with mine because mine has a 17-degree field of view. The view is very wide, and so I scan the areas, the tops of the ridge, and I'll see a minute heat signature, and I'll watch it, and I'll be like, okay, Shane, here it is over here, and then he took out his, zoomed in on what I was looking at as a heat signature, and that's an owl, or that's an armadillo, or whatever. So I can see something in the broad picture, and his will zoom in on it and get the details.
Right. So we've kind of had to take the time to, when we're looking at equipment, we're also having to think about our strategies and how we're using the equipment, as a team and whatnot. So that all comes into play too when purchasing equipment, So it's the way that we do things makes a big difference when it comes to the equipment, I guess you could say, So you have to think about all that when buying equipment for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
especially when you're spending a lot of money on it, But
absolutely. Yeah. Just a quick question here for Robert Denduven. How loud was the drone when it was above Shane? Could you hear it easily or not?
I can hear it to a point. Once it gets to a certain point, a certain height, I can't hear it anymore. One of the videos we're going to watch tonight, you can actually see the drone. I'm up on the ridge, which is a couple 100 foot above where Randy is. And he's got the drone up just maybe 75 feet above me and out a little bit from the ridge, but he's following me, filming me and watching around me and stuff. But you can just barely hear it, but you can see it because he had the lights on at the time. So it kind of gives you a little judge of distance, and you can just barely hear it. And it's fairly close to me considering, I'm up and the drone is just maybe 75 feet out and up away from me. So I would say you get this thing up around 300 feet. And like when he's been flying it over me and he was flying at 300 feet, I couldn't hear it. So I don't know where that threshold is exactly yet, but yeah, it gets to a point you can't hear it.
And we're always working with our techniques. Our techniques are fluid because it doesn't take us long to realize, hey, this is not going to work so well. So let's tweak it this way or let's change it this way. Right now, the video that you just watched was me launching it right beside our camp, but I had spent 30 minutes cutting 2 trees down in order to create an opening that I could send it up in. But
Right.
before that, I would have to walk 100 yards out of camp in order to have a spot with a little landing area that I could, that doesn't work. You can't have something happen where you need the drone immediately and then have to go way out over there and get it all set up to send it up. That takes too much time. So we have to have it ready to go and setting on the launch pad, ready to go the moment something happens. So the next campsite that we're setting up, he specifically found us a spot up on the ridge that has an opening where we can set the campsite up. Then the opening is going to allow us to have the drone inside the campsite. And the moment rocks start getting thrown at us, that sucker's going up. And if they're close enough to throw rocks, that drone's going to catch them.
Yeah. Well, that'll be great. That'll be great if that happens, honestly. It's what we need, isn't it? So a new injection of, Patty's just, we need more.
We need some new stuff in the community for sure. It's been kind of boring for quite some time as far as like new stuff coming out, and not that we've been helping that situation either, but it's
difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. What can people actually bring? What can they actually get? Unless you've got money to invest in equipment, people have been trying for a long time, haven't they? Before all this equipment, and it's not easy to get stuff. It's not the easiest of hobbies to have, and then when it becomes an expensive one, then you've really got to make it. I mean, you'll never make it pay, I guess. But if you could capture that bit of footage, just to raise more awareness about this thing, and hopefully pique some interest.
Yeah, for sure. People have been using the same strategies for years, and nothing, really new or bigger and better has been captured. And so, like at some point, people just got to think outside the box a little bit and really start focusing on different strategies. The same old shit ain't working. It's just that simple. We've never used, well, I shouldn't say never. We set a couple trail cams out, not on a tree though. One time in the 400, that's the only time we've ever used trail cameras, and it was just for a couple days. But Randy's came up with an idea that we've been throwing around, and he's been looking for the right cameras and stuff to do this. But like trail cams on a tree are obvious, and people think there's a lot to these things being able to pick out a trail camera. And I say that there's not a lot to that it's very simple for them because they live out in that environment. If you look at studies on apes, just in general, there's lots of studies on bonobos where they put trail cameras out in the jungles, and bonobos, who are the smartest apes out there in the jungle, they're hard to get on trail cam pics. Like they pick them out and they stay away from them like the plague. And it's because they think differently than we do. When they look out into the forest, in a millisecond, they'll go through 30 different scenarios, and which one's going to be the safest scenarios, because they have to live, right? So their brains compute and think completely differently than ours. So
Yeah.
So we just have to do things differently when it comes to that kind of stuff. Randy, I'll let you talk about that, what we're getting ready to do with the camera inside the tree.
Well, we always have discussions about game cams and their ineffectiveness and the reasons why, and that's all speculative. There's just no way to know for sure. What I do know for sure is I captured 2 pictures one night within the campsite of something coming in on the ground and looking up, and you catch its head, and it's so close to the camera that it's washed out white, but you can see hair on the head, no ears on the top of the head. So and that as a standalone picture by itself, you could say, wow, that's interesting. I mean, there's no ears to identify it as anything that you would know. But then it's the second picture that tells you what the first picture is. And that is, it goes from the ground to standing up, and the picture catches the top of the shoulder and the armpit, and you see hair on the chest.
Wow.
So it was something that came in on the ground, got its face taken in the picture, and then stood up and got its armpit taken. Now, this happened at the Chickasaw Park, which is where we're going to have our march with people joining us. That's where I was able to capture those 2 pictures with a game cam that I had hidden on a table with all my other camping supplies hidden within the camping equipment. So they can be tricked. The hard part is when cameras are on the side of the tree and it's the only thing there, it's easy to avoid. I can't know why. I can't know if it's because they see the infrared. I can't know if it's because they know the batteries or they can sense the batteries. I don't know if it could be the plastic. I don't know any of that. I just know that they were tricked that night with my placement of the camera. So it had nothing to do with the infrared, because it was a newer game camera that, you know, has all of those components. So those didn't matter at all the way it was hidden. So that tells me, so that's what I'm going to work with. I'm going to work with the fact that we just need to find a better way to hide the cameras in a way that if they don't know it's there, those other things I don't think are things that we have to worry about. So I was thinking the smaller, the better. And I've actually found a camera. I have to order it. I went to Home Depot a couple of days ago to buy one. They don't have them. You have to order them online. But it's a not a doorbell camera, but a peephole camera.
Okay, right, yeah.
That's made to go in your door, and the camera just fits in the peephole.
Yeah.
And the unit that's got the screen is on the inside of the door, so you can actually look on this screen, and it's motion activated, and it'll take 3,000 pictures, and the batteries will last 6 months. That's the camera that we need, that I can hide in a little log with just a little pinhole that you can set anywhere you want to, or we can put it in the side of an actual tree. We can cut a cubby hole in the tree, bury that camera, and put the bark back over the hole. So there's all kinds of applications that this one small tiny camera can last 6 months, take motion activated pictures, and be so tiny of a hole that it's just a dot on the side of a tree. I think that might be our best bet.
Yeah, it sounds like a good plan. You also wonder maybe, you know, if the sun glints on the lenses, if that's something or anything can shine light on those lenses and it just looks so foreign to them. But yeah, the smaller, you know, I've often thought of things about it being on the ground. You know, if you could capture their feet, if you could capture them walking past just from the knees down, that would be really interesting stuff to see.
All you have to do is think back to the fact that it put its face right up to my camera on the table.
Yeah.
And got this picture right here. So if me looking at the camera, that's what the picture looked like. So the shape of the lens looking like an eye, the red light for the infrared, all that stuff, none of that came into play. It was just the fact that it was amongst all of these other plastic tubs and Tupperware containers and camping supplies that it wasn't anything that stood out that it had to worry about, and caught 2 great pictures. So that's what I work with when I do things, and I'm like, okay, I had some success here. I did not have success here. And that's why me and Shane are doing so well, because we will tweak what needs to be tweaked, but then we also take it in a direction that was successful. You have to take advantage of that, or you may not ever be able to move it forward.
Mm. Well, it's literally trial and error, isn't it? There is no book to this, no guide. So
A lot of trial and error. Like we have cameras on Randy's side by side now because we had one run across a trail as we were coming around the corner, and our eyeballs missed it, but we probably would have caught it with the cameras on the side by side. So now Randy has a camera on the front, on the back, and inside the cab. So like every time we see that there was a possibility that we missed,
try to cover that base.
Yeah, we try to cover that base in case it happens again, you know, and like typically out there, what we found is that when something happens once, if we're there long enough, it'll happen again. So a lot of this is like preparing to capture that second moment whenever it may occur, which is, you know, the same thing with the audio that we captured on the 10-day trip, the chatter. It was the same thing. We had heard it once before, figured we would hear it again at some point, and we just had to capture it the next time, you know, and we got lucky. And so here we are again, you know, it's just over and over and over, constantly trying to tweak everything and cover all the bases, you know, and we get little clues, little pieces here and there that lead to the bigger things, and we get those covered, and then the next thing happens. So it's like we're constantly trying to cover those bases that we're missing out on, and they kind of show us those things by accident, I guess, you know.
And I enjoy the process of trying to outsmart something that is so intelligent, and we're not very successful at it. But my wife always makes fun of me. She says, you really should have got a degree in engineering, because of the way my mind works. I'm always trying to make things. Well, anyways, so even on my Polaris, I had to make a way for Shane to ride it with me, because it's a one-seater where so I put a thing where he could put his feet, and then a seat on the back held by chains where he can sit back in a seat, that a swing made for kids, where he's back there on the back bumper, and he can easily, comfortably ride around with me in a one-man Polaris Ace. But now it's a two-man Polaris Ace because of a little engineering. But that's
it also allows me to stand up and be able to film, like, you know, run while he's driving.
wow.
You know, I can be scanning with the thermal or filming. You know, it leaves me completely open where I'm not inside the cab also. So it works for that too.
Yeah, and so that's how he saw. When we were going down the trail, I was going pretty fast, and there was deep grass off to my right, and I saw the movement. The grass was moving, and as soon as we passed it, Shane was much higher than me on the back of the Polaris, and he goes, "Oh my God, did you see that?" And I saw the movement, but I wasn't high enough up to be able to look down into that deep grass, but Shane was, and he said it was something dark brown, and by that time we were already back to camp, because I was going 25 miles an hour, and I pulled into camp, and he was telling me, he was like, it was brown. And so that's why I bought a $400 camera that's made for a car, that has a camera going forward, a camera on the back, and it films me in the cab, but it gets a good wide field of view. Now, if we catch something again in the moment on a trail, you know, and that's always a good opportunity, even though that was the first time that we've ever had anything like that happen that we're aware of. I mean, surely something could have been ducked down in the at the edge of the woods before that we never even saw. But this was the first time we saw movement that we both identified as, what was that? It was brown. It was right there in that deep grass, like, you know. So who knows? But so then having to pull $400 out of my pocket and finding the best camera that's going to work for us, it seems to always be on our shoulders to keep funding all this ourselves. And believe me, after I spent the money on this drone, I'm like, man, I'm tapped out.
But I mean, great equipment to have. I mean, I'm sure, you know, it's
Well,
not just what you're going to use those drones for, you know.
We've got some help. We've got some help coming with that kind of stuff too. So that's gonna make it a little easier on us with, you know, with what we're doing and whatnot. At some point within this, we'll get, you know, some of that back and more equipment that we would like to be able to put into play. But I was just looking at the time. We better move forward and start showing some of this stuff. So we'll just go into the tracks, I guess. And so I got the okay to show a couple of the tracks. So this this picture here is actually from the most recent Trackway. So 2 months ago, we put out a Trackway on video, and those are the tracks that we're going to actually look at. But this right here was from 3 weeks ago,
Right.
maybe 4 weeks ago. It's the same individual. There was about a little over 50 tracks in this Trackway. You can skip to the next one if you want. Now, just so in that one, you can see the toes in it and whatnot. I didn't cast any of these because I could see that it's the same individual, and we already have, good castings of this individual, and it had rained.
Right. Okay.
Maybe even twice before I got to these tracks. So they were a little washed out and the details weren't there. And like we've got such detailed castings in the last Trackway that these tracks aren't going to show us anything new. You know what I mean? So,
What's the distance?
So I didn't cast any of them.
What's the distance between those tracks?
29 inches, actually. I may have sent you a picture that shows that, but 29 inches, 30 inches, that's well within the human range.
Yeah.
But I also like to remind people that when we're walking in mud, that distance shortens somewhat because we're pushing and pulling, and it changes our step pattern completely. So in thicker mud like this, it tends to shorten that stride, so, and actually the last Trackway was also the same. It was pretty consistently 29 to 32 inches.
Right.
So,
okay. Yeah.
And then if you want to go to that picture of the foot that I sent you, the bone structure.
Yeah.
So this is a human foot. So you see here, every person has 3 arches. Okay. So you're looking at the interior arch, which is considered an arch, and it's basically right behind the ball of the foot. Okay. So it goes across the ball of the foot. You have the medial longitude, which is the inside, right? That's the big arch that we have on the inside of our foot that goes basically from the ankle to the, to the big toe area. And then on the outside, we have the longitudinal arch. And a lot of people don't even realize that we have this arch on this outside. And some people, it hardly shows, but it has to do with the compression and the pushing and pulling, of all these bones here. So one of the things that we're going to see when we look at these tracks is we're going to see that these tracks have arches. Okay. So before we get into those pictures, I'd like to explain that in the past, it's really been pushed that these things have a mid-tarsal break, or actually it should be called a mid-tarsal joint.
Right.
And what we're seeing in these tracks, if there's a mid-tarsal joint, when you look at the pushback that is created within these tracks, the pushback should be from that mid-tarsal joint back. Okay. That mid-tarsal joint is literally right in front of where the front of the ankle. Okay. So, you're actually looking at about 3/4 of the foot in front of that mid-tarsal joint. And when you look at a lot of these tracks, that's not where that pushback is coming from, right? When you look at the adult tracks, it seems to, a lot of times it looks like it comes back from that area.
Yeah.
But a lot of this depends on the substrate, right? Whether it's dry substrate, whether it's wet or muddy, has a lot to do with how our feet create these tracks. And what we're seeing in all of these juvenile tracks are arches. Okay. And this is a big deal, whether people understand it or not, because the difference between a human primate and a non-human primate is arches. All human primates have arches, and all non-human primates do not have arches. They have a mid-tarsal joint. Okay.
Right. Okay.
So, our tracks are showing arches, and I can show you adult tracks that are showing arches. There's a couple pictures of Meldrum holding 2 different tracks that I can think of right off the top of my head, and they have an hourglass shape. And for a track to leave that hourglass shape, it has to have arches. Okay, so that there and alone says there's a possibility that these are non-human primates versus human primates. Okay. So if you would, real quick, could you click over to the picture of the throat?
I'm sorry. I thought we were going to do them. Sorry about that.
I want to get into this while we're talking about this.
Yeah.
So basically here you have an ape and you have a human. So if you look at the oral cavity and the throat of the human, that distance is about the same. You have a 1-to-1 ratio. With apes, you have a 2-to-1 ratio. So it takes the length, twice the length of the throat to equal the length of the oral cavity. So this is what allows us to have speech and language. Okay, everything that has speech and language has a 1-to-1 ratio. All apes have a 1-to-2 ratio. Okay, so you can click off of that now. So I just wanted to point that out and throw that out here, because we're going to be listening to some audio tonight and discussing, language and vocals. And if these things have a language, then they most likely have a 1-to-1 ratio. And that also points towards them being a human primate versus a non-human primate. Okay. That where our vocal cords are set up and the distance that we have allows us to make sounds like G's and B's. And there's many sounds that apes cannot make that we can make. And it's because of that 1-to-1 ratio. Okay. Another thing that people are starting to catch on to, which I've talked about before, is that, there's an idea that these things may have 2 sets of vocal cords, because like when I'm looking at some of these vocals on the spectrogram, looking at the frequency patterns, at times you're hearing frequencies that are way up here, but they're not registering. Okay. Right. So what I'm hearing, and I believe Thinker Thunker recently put out a video on this, and I was like, wow, somebody else is hearing this. But it seems as though at times we're hearing like a harmony of the main note that they hit when they're speaking or yelling or whatever. So if you think about it like this, like if you have, say, a key structure, a note structure, you have 4 notes, right? Number 1 and number 3 are harmonies of each other, or say 1 and 4 are harmonies of each other, right? Okay. So naturally, when they hit this frequency here, that 4th frequency they're hitting also, which in those 2 frequencies together will create a 3rd frequency, and then that will help create a 4th frequency. So it's almost as if there's frequencies being hit that aren't registering, that may be like a harmonization of 2 or 3 frequencies that they're hitting at the same time. That makes sense. Yeah. So a lot to think about there, but you can go ahead and go to the pictures of the castings. So we haven't shown these casts publicly yet.
These are great.
We've been John Morley. We've been working with him, and we're having him study these tracks, and he's actually joining the team and jumping in with us, like more on a full-time role as far as helping us with these tracks. So that track right there in particular, if you look where the heel is, you see that big flat spot. So what that was is the pushback. Okay, the pushback went all the way back into the heel. You have to remember that the substrate was mud, and some of these tracks were 2.5 to 3 inches deep in front. So if you go back to that last track, this one didn't have as much, but you can still see it there. But if you look on the inside of that foot right there, you can clearly see that there's a medial longitudinal arch there, right where we have our main arch. You can see it. Yeah. Okay. You can completely see it there. And if you look closely, you can also see the lateral longitudinal arch, which is on the outside. Okay. And of course, they're going to have the same arch at the ball of the foot, or at least that joint. It may not be set up like an arch, but they're going to have that joint. So if you go to the cast view that is a side view, okay, so if you look right there, you see that pushback that was created, that hump that goes all the way through the center of that starts at the ball of the foot, right? Yeah. So that pushback was pushed all the way from the ball of the foot, all the way back into the heel. Okay. We went out and we actually laid tracks in the mud flat. I did a trackway, and actually Cynthia, the female director that's working with us, she did a trackway also. she has really hard arches and small feet. But she was able in 2 of her tracks to leave a pushback that was very similar to what these things are leaving. It's
Cool.
not exact, but it's very similar.
Yeah.
And of course, she has a very hard arch, so it shows big time in her track, way less than these tracks. Like these tracks aren't leaving, like they don't have the arch that we have. I'm not saying that, but we are definitely seeing arches. Okay, and that right there shows that the pushback is coming from the ball of the foot. Now, the issue that comes up for us is this makes it harder for us to prove that these juvenile tracks are made by juvenile Sasquatch because they're showing arches, okay? But like I said, we can also show these arches in adult tracks. So
Yeah.
going back to the fact if these things have arches, that puts them in the human primate side versus the non-human primate side. So for us, it's a big deal because if we're able to capture more audio and really help Scott Nelson prove that these things have a language, that's the second piece of data that we have ourselves that shows that these things are a non-human, or that these things are a human primate versus non-human primate. So
Yeah.
all these little pieces of data, you know, there's big things that we can pull out of them. We just got to be able to keep collecting it and show it over and over and over, you know. And like with these new sets of tracks that we're getting, I have to get these tracks consistently now for the next 2 or 3 years to show the growth patterns and hopefully show and be able to prove that their feet flatten out over time due to weight dispersion, them gaining weight and muscle mass after they go through puberty and all that stuff, you know. So that's where our thought process is heading. We just have to now be able to follow that up and get these same tracks for the next few years, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, we kind of hit a brick wall, haven't we, with what we think we know about these things, and we just kind of go along with it, don't we? We're not branching off and going, okay, let's follow this path maybe, or you're finding evidence of something. Okay, let's build on that, because you know, again, I keep saying it. There's not many people putting a lot of time in, like hours and hours and days and months into this thing, and like you've been doing years of doing it, and so you know it's easy to find one thing and make a presumption, but you have to keep finding or looking for things to match to keep going. And it sounds like you're slowly getting there, and yeah, it might change what we think. Maybe we need that. I mean, literally, we are stuck in a rut of believing what everybody else thinks. Maybe people that are higher, you know, in better professions or think, you know, better skills. I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, the audio's coming. The audio's coming. We just got to get through a couple other things. So if you want to show that.
Well, I'm very persistent. Like
somebody was asking for the audio, so Randy was like, "Audio? What are you talking about?"
Oh, right. What audio? Have we got some audio?
There was one more cast. There's a couple of the cast pictures that show a side view.
And then let's give people a chance to get some headphones maybe for the audio, just because it will help.
For sure.
It just helps it, doesn't it? If you've got headphones on, I mean, it makes it totally 100% better.
All right. And when you describe the audio, Shane, they need to know that you guys were chatting amongst yourself. You couldn't figure out what was going on, and make sure they know all of that so that they can listen to it and know what's happening.
Yeah,
for sure.
And you can't talk. You can't talk through the audio, by the way. You'll have to explain it before. For some reason, it mutes everybody, and you can't talk and listen at the same time.
So there was a couple of the track pictures that had some hairs in them. So these hairs were actually in one of the tracks that were really deep. I believe this track was like maybe 2 to 2.5 inches deep. And this is the second time actually that we've captured hair inside tracks. This one here,
thick, doesn't it? It's thick.
Yeah, and well, there's like 5 hairs right there actually.
Yeah,
they're kind of clumped together.
Well, I've put them on there. I've just opened it up actually on a bigger screen. But I mean, even going in, you can still see the thick, even though there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Thick hair there.
Yeah. Sorry for the blurry picture there, but so you know we are now. Could we use that hair sample for DNA? No, because I I went through, I didn't even realize the hair was on there until after I had you know, I was 3/4 of the way through cleaning it with a soft bristled toothbrush.
Right.
And, you know, I clean these things really, you know, you don't want to mess anything up within the track itself. So I really take my time cleaning them, and I'm really careful. And then boom, oh, there's a hair. And I've already, you know, went over it with my hands several times probably and whatnot. And digging it out of there, we would most likely ruin it anyway. So at this point, we're just going to leave it in. I'm actually going to take that track, and I'm going to build a glass case for it and just leave that hair in it. And that's going to be, it's just going to stay there. So that's one of the things that's going to go in my office. And me and Randy, it's funny. Like we have all these things we've collected, and Randy's just now starting to, you know, put things. He's got himself an office, and he's got posters and stuff that we've done hanging up, you know, and I'm just now starting to do that. And that's going to be my first piece, even though I have other things. That's going to be my first piece. So
yeah, why not? Randy's got his t-shirts up there, one on his door there.
Yeah, that's our first shirt that we're going to release, actually. Randy, you want to show that? Can you stand up for a second? It says, "Why can't I quit you?" It's from a movie. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So
there we go. OZARK.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there some audio? Have we got some audio?
Let's do it. So let's listen to one first. One is the chatter. And so just to kind of set it up, we had the film crew out with us. They had only been there for, I think, 3 or 4 days at that point. And Randy and the rest of the crew had went out to the creek to launch the drone. And the idea that night was I was going to take off by myself, with Alex, running a camera. So it was just going to be me and Alex. We're going to take off down the trail in an area where we catch these things on thermal, or what we have in the past. And Randy was going to run out in front of me with the drone and, you know, look for hot spots. And if he found a hot spot, then he would let me know on the headsets and lead me to them to see exactly what they are. And we weren't seeing much other than deer. And we actually lost contact on our headsets at about halfway out. So Randy took off ahead of us in the drone, and then he circled around and came back down the creek to where he was, scanning all that area. So in the meantime, me and Alex went on out to our the location we were headed to. Didn't see anything. I was using my thermal true, just a couple deer laying down and stuff that we caught. And so we headed back, and about a quarter of the way back, we stopped. I was doing a scan with the thermal, and I was looking up towards the ridge. And you have to remember, I'm looking through a thicket. There's about a 40-yard thicket between me and the base of the ridge. And then there's trees and all that too. And there's trees on the ridge line going all the way up it. So I'm looking through trees, and I'm looking at this hot spot, and I just can't see enough of what it is to determine what it is or even have an idea. So as I'm sitting here looking at this, me and Alex, I'm telling him, you know, I'm looking at a hot spot. I can't see what it is. And I filmed it all. So this all got captured on the thermal too. And it has audio also. So all this audio is in picture and on that camera also. So we're sitting there, and I'm trying to figure out what this is I'm seeing. And all of a sudden we start hearing this sound. And at first I didn't recognize what I was hearing. It started out as this, like chirping sound, and from what I could hear where I was at, like a grunting sound or like some kind of weird bark, or, I wasn't sure. And then, so we got quiet for a moment. And as we're sitting there listening, this morphed into something that sounds like the samurai chatter. So Scott Nelson has this audio. He's going over it right now. I actually talked to him a few nights ago. Thus far, he actually just started listening to it and working with it last week. So he hasn't spent a lot of time on it, but thus far he's not hearing language in it. Right. But a lot of the sounds, a lot of the chatter that you hear in the Sierra sounds, he wasn't finding language in it either. So what I did here in this clip, this is just a small little clip of it. We can't share a big portion of it because it's going to be in the documentary series, and Scott's still going over it, and we don't want to hurt his, with what he's doing. Yeah. So it's a quick, small little clip, but it's I started it right where the buildup happens, where this thing goes from low to like excited and high pitched.
Yeah. And I'll play it a couple of times as well, one after another, and then or 3 times, and then people can have a good listen.
I think it replays it 3 times each time the video goes. So.
All right. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, let's go. There's definitely something going on there, isn't there?
Definitely. Of course,
just
we can't.
Just like the Sierra sounds.
So, of course, there's more to that. It's about what we caught is about 3 minutes long, and there's what we believe to be 2 individuals in it.
I was going to say, do you think there was just 2?
From the audio itself, yeah, it sounds as though there's 2. As far as the whole clip itself, the whole 3 minutes, Scott Nelson actually at the conference, the first clip that he played was very similar to this sound, and in the whole clip you hear like a chirping sound, and then you hear these like gruffs, and that happens in that clip that he has of the Sierra sounds too. And it also builds. There's a building part where it goes, that happened right before where this clip was. But I didn't want to put that in it too and give away too much. But
no,
a lot of similarities that we're hearing. And in the clip of the Sierra sounds, when Scott talks about that, he believes that the chirping sound is a young one, like a toddler, and that there's an adult that is getting irritated with it, and finally goes into that chatter, like, he describes it as basically chewing the young one's butt, getting it.
And I'd like to add in there, even though we call it chirping is going to make you think that we think it sounds like a bird. That's not what we're saying. It's just that the sound's coming from a minute being like that would leave 6-inch tracks, so it's going to be a very small critter, and it's almost like a bark, but it's a very whimpering type bark chirp. So to differentiate between the volume of an adult male or a young one, it seems to be the same thing that they captured on the Sierra sounds.
Right. So we captured that. There's 2 videos, if you want to play those real quick, that show the log recorders, and that'll show where this sound came from. So there's another video audio clip that we'll play last, and that audio clip that we play last actually came from the recorder that is in the second video. And this will kind of give people an idea too of the drone and how far away you can hear it, because it's in one of these videos, the first one.
Okay, cool.
I don't know if you can hear it or not. You can see it right there. There's the drone. Randy's actually following me with the thermal. So as I go down this ridge line, he can see everything around me. We're communicating on headsets right now, which allows him to tell me if he sees any heat signatures around me. Good stuff. OMS.
Okay, so you can see that log recorder there. That was the closest one to camp, and the next one is on down the ridge, and this is the area where the samurai chatter was captured, and where the following audio that we'll play was also captured.
Okay.
All right, once again, up on the ridge, came across this down tree with a rock up on it, a large rock. Thought that was interesting, so I'm going to leave the recorder right next to it, shooting up this direction into no man's land, looking for that samurai chatter. Hook us up, hook us up.
So that's the area where the chatter came from. And I saw a question in the comments. When we recorded that chatter, we were down on a trail about 40 yards away from the base. And this area is an active area that I go to every single weekend and do hikes. And this is like our research area. So we know exactly where this stuff is happening and where to put these recorders and whatnot. So this last trip out, when we found that the tracks that we looked at earlier that we didn't cast, that video is actually from the last trip. So when I set that last recorder up there that night, we captured some very, very strange audio. And there's audio leading up to this where you can hear something walking through the woods, almost like parallel to the recorder itself. The recorder in that video was pointing south. So whatever is making this noise, because the next recorder was east of that recorder, whatever is making this noise that we're going to hear is moving southwest to west away from that last recorder. It's super loud. We hear it. You can hear it in the audio coming and walking through the woods before it starts making this sound. So I'll just before I say anything about the sound, we'll just let people hear it and decide for themselves.
Yeah.
That'll be that
Okay.
other video audio clip.
Got you. Let's play it.
So I just stopped it there. That's just a portion of it. This went on for 3 minutes.
Wow.
And it gets quieter and quieter and quieter as it goes. So you can tell that it's moving away from the audio recorder. But we can't say what that is. All we can say is that was captured at about 3:30 in the morning, 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning. It was captured in the same area that the chatter that we captured came from. And we also have other audio from up there that we're still working with and trying to figure out. And, we'll release pieces of it later once we, can get more information pulled out of it and whatnot. But, to me, when I first heard that, and me and Randy, the first time we heard it, we had different opinions on what we were hearing. When he let me hear it after that first one, my brain thought maybe it was like a buck snort or something like that. I'm trying to think of things that could make a similar sound. And then after it kept happening, I'm like, I used to hunt a lot. So, bucks typically when they snort, they'll stop and they'll put their head down. And, they may scrape at the ground and then they'll do their snort, or they'll stop because there's another buck around, or they're trying to drive their females. They'll stop and their head will be up. But typically when they do that, they're stopping, right? I have seen them do it while they're moving, but this is consistent for 3 minutes over and over and over and over. I've never heard any animal do anything like that before. So the next thing that my brain told me was like 2 pieces of like 1x6, like cedar, being smacked together. Other than that, I have no idea what we're hearing there. Randy had, you talk about it, Randy, what you hear.
Well, from all that I've listened to the Sierra Sounds, I hear so many of the vocalizations on the Sierra Sounds that includes a bark, a breathy bark where, where they push air into what sounds like a bark. So that's the impression I got, that it was this type of barking huff continuing for 3 minutes and 15 seconds until we couldn't hear it anymore. So it was something moving in a line. For some reason, it felt like it had to do that every so often, which seems so odd. Even if it was a wooden, being slammed together, possibly. But either way, it's the pattern of continuing for that length of time as it's leaving until you can't hear it anymore. So that means it probably was still doing it. So what kind of animal does something like that, and what would be the purpose? You would think that you make vocalizations for, you're either calling a mate, you're calling for, because you want to have a little sex or whatever. So you're doing those type of things, or you're challenging another male, if you're a deer or whatever. Just the consistency of doing it so long doesn't strike me as being a natural thing.
No, a lot of energy going into that, especially like you say for 3 minutes.
Well, 3 weeks ago, I was up there by myself, and I actually posted a video on Randy's Facebook page that you can look at if anybody wants to go see it, if you're friends with Randy. But I think I labeled it tracking while Randy's going through audio. And I'm up where those recorders were that we just watched on, listening to that. And I spent about, 2 hours that day tracking up there while he was doing audio, when he was going through audio. And I was following compression trail of at least 2 individuals. At times it looked like maybe 3, but there was at least 2 individuals that I was tracking up there. It was 2 hours of tracking up there and following it. And I posted some video of it so people can see what I'm talking about. It's in leaf, it's all leaf litter, but when the leaf litter is wet and it will compress and stay compressed, it allows you to really, get on these compression trails versus during the summer when everything's green. And so I love tracking this time of year because of that. Yeah. Those nice, cold, dewy mornings, everything's a little wet and damp. Those are great mornings for tracking. But so yeah, I'm finding compression trails up there, big time. So we know that there's, something's going through up there, and now we've captured
there may be a lot of
audio. So we know where to put the recorders at this point.
Yeah.
And there may be a lot of people here that don't really know the full story of the 400. There's so many components to the 400 and how long we've been there, the thermals that we've captured, the audio that we've captured. We've captured them digging through every box on our table, through our campsites, getting into our ice chests, breaking branches around our campsite while we're gone. We leave a recorder there. So we're getting all of these things. So it's when you put all of these layers together, as it stands, if it stood alone, you can't argue that it could be something else. It could be a deer. It could be a fox. It could be whatever. But you put all these components together, and it gives you layer after layer after layer. The foot tracks and the audios and the rocks being thrown that we marked and they threw them back at us and all of that kind of stuff. They're there. They are there. And sure, we might get it wrong occasionally by thinking something that happened was them. But a lot of times we're going to be right that it's them.
Yeah. You need to, go through this stuff. And like you say, there's stuff happening. You have to include it, or at least try and debunk it. The thing with audio as well is, though, like acoustics in the woods and stuff like that, can be deceiving, can't it? It's very difficult to pick up clear stuff. But the more you get, obviously something is going on. There's patterns going on, and you guys know they're there anyway. It's not like you're trying to prove that they're there. It's trying to get more evidence of what they're doing there, maybe, or you don't have to prove it to yourselves they're there, do you? You know full well.
Oh no,
yeah.
I've seen them, out there over time. Randy hasn't seen them during the day, but he's watched them on thermal on numerous occasions. Like, he's led me out to them, we absolutely know they're there, and we have all this evidence. But like Randy was saying, standalone, none of it is worth a shit. You have to compile all this data to start seeing the big picture, you know, and as the pieces come together, then, you know, we're able to start putting some of that stuff out, but it's pointless to put a lot of this stuff out on its own. We have to be able to compile it and compress it.
Hey, check that out. The dinosaur hunter. That's what it sounds like. A compressor. It sounded like a compressor punch of air from the compressor.
Yeah. And I'll say this too. I have a video on my YouTube channel called Roars in the 400. And if you go listen to that, at the very beginning, we hear these sounds that I described them as roars, but they almost have like a metallic air compressed sound also. And it's coming from up the holler from us. And it's like loud and clear. You can hear it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's actually, I forgot about that. And that was actually a very similar sound. So I'm going to have to go back now and go back over that video and audio and compare them on the frequencies and
that'd be interesting, yeah, if they match up at all in any way. Well, that's what's great about you guys, is you're getting a lot of data, whether it's all connected, who knows, you're going through that and you're checking it and the stuff you've got from the past as well. The technology's obviously improved, and I'm pretty sure you've got more stuff there than you even knew about on some of the old stuff that you've been capturing. So it's going to be exciting to see this docu-series and where it goes, and the fact that these people that are following you, doing it with you, were kind of, you know, I guess skeptics, but they're also, you say, experiencing stuff as well. So they're now intrigued and switched onto it.
The lady that is in charge of the filming part, Cynthia, she actually she expressed in an interview last week that she's involved in a project that she may have to speak over, you know, most of the project, because she's become a part of it, and she's never had to go that route before. She's always behind the scenes, but literally, yeah, the first day, 2 hours in, her and the camera lady had an experience that they can't explain what it was they saw. So they were thrusted into the documentary with us right off the bat. And that's kind of the cool thing about it is there's not going to be any behind the scenes people in this docuseries. Everybody that's involved is going to be on camera because they're all dealing with these experiences and hearing these sounds and seeing things, you know, so they have to be a part of it too. So this project is different than anything she's ever done, and they're loving it. They're super pumped and excited, and like they had a blast with us. You know, they enjoyed it. Like, you know, how much more fun can you have than, oh, you want to go film on a Hollywood set and work your ass off all day for 15 hours a day, or do you want to go camping and just film what we're doing while we're camping and having fun? You know what I mean? Like, they're pumped about it. So it's good for us too. It's a good change of pace for them, and that makes it great for us, you know. So excellent. It's going to be different. It's going to be different than anything that's ever been put out, I think, you know, and it's probably going to show some sides of me and Randy that people may like or may not like at times, you know. Like we went into this, it's 100% whatever happens, and we're not going to hold any shit back, you know. Like if we were to catch somebody fooling us, like we would show that, you know. If some crazy stuff happens that may be embarrassing, we're still going to show it. I had something very personal happen to me while I was out there, and I've got to kind of hold my feet to the fire, because this is like, you know, I kind of spearheaded the idea of this project, and the whole idea was 100% of the time, right? So it's going to be interesting.
It's a big commitment.
It is,
yeah,
and I wish I would have said 80%.
Maybe that would.
Yeah, to give me some options, you know. But
exactly.
Like unexpected things happen, and it's just going to be the truth, you know. Like we're not going to hold anything back. It's going to be 100% the truth, and whether it yields like fantastic evidence or not isn't really the point of it. The point of it is for people to see what we're out there doing, how we're doing it, and kind of experience our lives and go along with us in the moment, you know. That's what it's all
You know,
about.
and one of my toxic traits is I've always expected people to have common sense that I'm around with, and I actually get mad when they don't. And Shane has a lot of common sense and a lot of logic. We mesh well. Uh, I feel, you know, even though he and I are different, we still are a lot alike in many aspects. So so far that's really working out pretty good for us.
Well, that's good because you keep each other grounded, you know, which is important as well. And like you say, it's not like you're doing a video on how to fix a washing machine. This is a personal journey for everyone involved, as Bigfoot seems to be, especially anybody who's encountered.
You know what else I've learned? You know what I've learned from Shane? Even though this is a trait of myself, I've seen it in Shane, so that way I can recognize it in myself. But it's work ethic. Work ethic is important because unlike intelligence, athleticism, charisma, or any other natural attribute, work ethic is a choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's
Very good point. Very good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though some of us have a lot of beauty and athletic ability.
There you go. There you go. But you're right. I mean, we've got choices all the time, haven't we? And it's making
That's not
the right
my fault.
ones. It's not your fault. No, you were just born like that. I mean, you know.
Well, yeah, people just I feel like researchers need to put everybody else out on the outside world away and not worry about them, not worry about catching a better clip than the last video that you put out. And like people put undue pressure on themselves when they start making videos and things like that, you know. And me and Randy have been able to finally just say screw all that stuff, and we don't have that pressure anymore, you know. Like we're not trying to be popular, we're not trying to get 500,000 YouTube hits, we're not trying to do any of that stuff. We're just out there doing what we enjoy doing and love doing, and we got somebody following along with cameras now to document it. That's it. Very simple.
And just remember, for all of those people out there that want to be researchers, if it excites you and scares you at the same time, then it's probably something you should be doing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, look, guys, it's been fascinating going through it all, and really appreciate you sharing those little snippets with us. I'm hoping you're going to share a little bit more as the journey continues.
In due time.
Yeah, and we can keep a track of what you're doing and how it's going, and I'm excited for when the docu-series comes out. Any idea of when? That'd be obviously next year at some point.
We literally just met a new editor a few days ago, and he's getting ready to start kind of, we can't build a storyboard because none of this is planned out, but he's kind of going through and he's going to start piecing everything together. And the directors are actually going to edit them themselves. So he's the beginning of that process, and he just got the footage and is starting to go through it. So they're starting that process now. And there's always a chance that, like they may show a sizzle reel or something to somebody and they may want it immediately, and they may contract us for 12 episodes. And if, something like that happens, it'll be out sooner than later, and we'll be filming while we'll be filming in the process, staying ahead basically of what's coming out. So,
and one thing's for sure, this is an open-ended thing that we can't put any kind of deadline on, because it's that kind of out of our hands to how they package it and put it together. What we do have a handle on is the second Missouri Bigfoot conference this next year. We're going to be a part of that. If you want something written in stone, find a way to get to that, because we will definitely be showing stuff there. Even if the documentary is already out, this is still something that's already written in stone. So try to plan on that. If you're anywhere close to Missouri and can get to the second Missouri conference, it'll be a good one.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that.
We plan on saving some stuff back to release at next year's Missouri conference. So like most likely the biggest stuff that we get next year, we'll hold out for the Missouri conference and show it then and there. So only those people that are there will get to see it until it comes out on the docu-series.
All right. Well,
Unless we're like backstage on a StreamYard or something, you know.
well, that'll do then. We'll hook you in then. Well, once again, thank you guys for coming on, and we will definitely have you back and catch up again soon. Kyle, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Everyone, go and check out Kyle on Encrypted Connections. The link has been posted through the chat all night, and there's also links in the description. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think of that audio, what you think it might be, if you've heard anything similar. Like I say, leave a comment and give the show a thumbs up if you don't mind. Tomorrow night we've got River Morris coming all the way from Australia, so that is going to be a good night. Until then, everyone, take care and see you all soon.